Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Jenni Johnson, the founder of Jenni Johnson Breast, Bottle, and Beyond. Jenni is a registered nurse, an international board-certified lactation consultant, and a craniosacral body worker with a passion for helping families navigate breastfeeding, bottle feeding, pumping, weaning, and everything in between. Jenni is especially passionate about addressing birth trauma and body tension, tongue and lip ties, helping women get the most out of pumping, and ensuring that families truly receive the support they need to meet their feeding goals. She is such a blessing to families in Northeast Wisconsin as she offers in-office support in Green Bay, Appleton, and Antigo, as well as mobile support where she'll come to your home. Outside of her work, Jenni loves to travel, read, and sing, plus she's been married to her high school sweetheart for nearly 35 years. We can't wait for you to learn from her, so let's get started with today's conversation. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We are excited to welcome Jenni to our 4-part series. Welcome, Jenni.
Thank you.
We're excited to learn from you. And of course, if you guys have been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, you know that anytime we start a new series, we like to learn a fun fact about our guest. And Jenni, you said that you competed in solo ensemble in high school and you won a state gold and silver for singing. Tell us about your experience.
So my senior year, I ended up doing a solo that I absolutely loved. It was actually in English, which if you're familiar with singing, most of the pieces aren't in English. So it was even dearer to my heart that it was an English piece. And I was shocked at the regionals to get the state designation, and then went and performed at state. And my accompanist was actually the person that I did a duet with to get the silver. So we spent a lot of time together and really enjoyed our love of music together.
Do you still get to sing?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
I don't too much, usually in the shower.
I feel like we should have you sing a little song for us right here.
Not today.
Not today. Okay, fine. But you also shared that you were the first female town chairman in Manitowoc County.
Yes, I was.
So do you still live in Manitowoc County?
I don't. No, at the time we lived in the Maribel area. I was the town chair for town of Cooperstown. Kind of on the northern edge of Manitowoc County. I was appointed to a position on the board because a person had left. And after I completed that term, I ran again, and I got a position as just a supervisor. And then our chairman was leaving. And I thought, I like this helping people. I like the government. I like that. So ran and won the position for chairman, and then later realized that I was the first female in Manitowoc County.
Cool. What a fun experience. Yeah, that is awesome. And then down the road, you became a lactation consultant. So, I mean, we've already covered multiple different fun chapters of your life. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how your journey within the health and wellness field, and then specifically how you became a lactation consultant and then your own practice?
So after I had our second child, I had used the Bradley method instead of Lamaze. When we had our first child, we used the Lamaze method, and it was not functional for me. I found that trying to ignore that I was in labor was kind of a joke. I actually had a nurse yell at me to open my eyes and focus on something. And I'm like, no, I'm much more of an inner control kind of person. So with our second, I read the book, Husband, Coach, Childbirth, the Bradley Method, and learned a lot about how your body works and how it should work. And we used that for our second, and our second labor was much better. And through that process, learned about doulas. So in my head, I was going to become a doula. I was going to save the world and help women birth better. Then in my infinite thinking of needing more knowledge, I decided that I was going to be a registered nurse. Having labor delivery experience would help expand my doula experience. So decided at 23 to go back to school and became a nurse. In 2003, I started working at Bellin Hospital as a medical surgical nurse and tried to get into the maternity department. And they kept hiring internally, and I never got to get into Bellin's maternity department. Found a position in Aurora, Two Rivers, Manitowoc County, Aurora. That was a combination of a medical surgical unit and labor delivery.
Oh, interesting.
It was
I guess small hospital, right?
Very, very small. So we were doing knees on one side of the unit and delivering babies on the other side of the unit. And it was at that point that I really met and worked with my first lactation consultant. And it was just fascinating to me, the amount of education, the teaching, the helping, the support that went in to helping babies breastfeed, because we think it's natural, it should just happen.
Mm-hmm.
And learning the little nuances and being able to help a family through that new journey. And then I got to help with a set of twins. And the twins latched wonderfully after we made some adjustments, and the mom was tandem feeding, and it was just, that was it. The floodgate opened, and I was ready to then move into lactation.
Cool.
So I had a friend working at a hospital in Green Bay, and she's like, they're having a hard time hiring a lactation educator. I know you don't have any certification, but I think you should apply. She was like, I know you love teaching people. I know you love learning. It'd be a good space for you. So I applied, and they hired me. So without having lactation background, without having really the credentials to do the job, they took a chance. So I was at St. Mary's Hospital for 9 years as their lactation specialist initially, and then I became an IBCLC. So at that time, I needed 3,000 contact hours and a 45-hour class plus extra education to take the exam.
That's like not messing around. They really are very serious about this credential.
Yes.
How much education do you need to be a lactation consultant? Like not an IBCLC?
So if you're not an IBCLC, you're not a consultant.
Okay.
So a CLC certification is a certified lactation counselor.
Okay.
So very similar. I feel like people get confused by the initials. So I started out as a lactation specialist. So I started out as an LS. And that I actually, you date yourself when you say things. It was a correspondence course.
Oh,
I don't even know what that means. Correspondence course?
So they sent you all of the information through the mail.
Oh.
And you read the book and did all the homework and sent it back in. And then you would take the test and then send the test back in. So that certification was kind of fun. Like I said, you date yourself when you're like snail mail kind of certification. And then you have to accumulate so many certified hours. So you're required to take a 45-hour class that just focuses on the basics of lactation. At that point, it was 45 hours, sorry. Now it's 90 hours.
For IBCLC.
To sit for the exam, you have to take the 90-hour class. And most CLCs, the counselors will take that class now kind of as their base. That's the starting point. And then you have to build your education. You have to have so many extra hours. We have to have hours in lactation-related curriculum. We have to have ethics. And then we have to have actual specific lactation. So some of the cranial sacral classes that I do can be related to lactation, but then I have to take courses on pumping and I have to take courses on very lactation specific.
Cool. So then after you were at the hospital for a while, I believe then you went into private practice.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes. So being at the hospital opened up so many doors in my life. The one was that I learned that when I hold babies, they unwind. And that's where the cranial sacral work came in. And I took more classes and training to learn about that. I also learned to stand on my feet and actually be a real advocate. So when I started getting pushback from some of our providers about oral tissue and how it impacts suck, swallow, and baby's comfort, I decided that that wasn't my space to be in. I was a patient advocate, not a provider advocate, and moved into the space of learning more and helping parents navigate any difficulties that they were having.
Okay. And when was your business born?
In 2015, on January 1st, 2015 was our official start date. So that makes it 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
This year.
Woo.
I started out as BFF, breastfeeding friend. And many people were like, people look for Jenni. They don't look for BFF. It was confusing for people. So last June, we did a rebranding, and now it's Jenni Johnson Breast, Bottle, and Beyond.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
In this episode, we do want to dive into kind of just when you're getting ready to have a baby, it's hard to know what your options are for feeding that little guy or girl, and then which one is going to be the best for you. So what are the choices that parents have for feeding newborns? Like, we know there's pumping, we know there's breastfeeding, but like, what are kind of all the different options? And then what are like the pros and cons of each one?
Absolutely. So the biological way to feed our children would be to provide milk from our body. It doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't fit everyone's lifestyle. It doesn't sit well with everyone's conscience sometimes. So I like to meet people where they're at and just, kind of discern what their plan might be. When we talk about options, we talk about the two types of milk that we can offer babies. We can offer them human milk, which is made for human babies. It's, molecularly made for them to digest and for them to uptake the nutrients. Or we have processed milks. Human milk is kind of fun. It doesn't have to be yours. It takes a village. So if there's a mom that maybe is struggling with her production for various reasons we're going to talk about later too, we have donors in our community that are more than happy to share if they have extra milk as well. So we have those as options. And then our processed milks, we have mammal milk. The majority is cow's milk, which some babies struggle to digest. We're moving into the space of goat's milk, which is good. So we've got some goat's milk formula. I always used to laugh when you look at the size of a calf compared to the size of a newborn baby. It doesn't surprise us that their milk doesn't digest well. But if you look at a kid, a baby goat, they're very similar in size. And like, molecularly, that is closer. Nutrients is different. They have to add more to goat formula than they do to cow formula. But it gives us some options. And then we have our plant-based. In our world, it's pretty much soy, which not everyone is comfortable giving their children soy. I'm hoping that in the future we look further into oat milk and almond milk and things in that realm.
That'll be interesting, to see it kind of change and the different things that come out.
Yeah.
During pregnancy, what can women do to kind of help figure out and navigate which option is going to be best for them, whether it's breastfeeding, bottle feeding with formula, pumping, a combination of all of it? What are your recommendations on how people prepare for this journey?
Well, and I think you mentioned the key word, pregnancy. I think waiting until after baby arrives and to see what happens doesn't help us get ready to feed our babies. Breastfeeding is a learned skill. It's much like driving a car. You've watched other people feed babies. You think about it, but you didn't really get to practice yet. And we get confident as time goes on and we build skill. So meeting with someone to talk about your options, to make plans for how, if I want to feed my baby from my body, how am I going to do that? If I want to feed my milk from a bottle, how do I best do that? And then, if I need help, I've already met a person that I can reach out to get that help that I need.
Well, I wish I would have had.
We're huge advocates for that. I mean, in pregnancy, like if you're a first time mom listening to this and you're, pregnant right now, do this, because after baby's here, it's crazy. Like, your brain is not working, your hormones are crazy. It's best to just get help with lactation or anything else before baby comes, for sure.
And I feel it's so important to meet the people in your community so that you find who fits with you. I am not very A-type. I'm pretty laid back, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea. So if you're looking for somebody who's super structured and is going to give you like a schedule, not your girl. But let's talk, let's chat, let's work through some of your questions. I offer 2 options for that breastfeeding support and kind of knowledge finding. The Breastfeeding Basics is a virtual class that I offer for free the 4th Tuesday of every month. You can sign up on the website, and it will then send you a link to the private class. So it's online, it's virtual, but it's not open to just anyone. And then I do a pregnancy visit. I can do that at home, in the office, or virtually. At home or in the office, you get a cute little goodie bag, and we have different things in there to help get you ready. We talk about hand expression, and we have a squeezy breast that I always laugh you can use to throw at people during labor if needed.
That's a good idea. There you go.
And a spoon, and we talk about spoon feeding, and we talk about the pitfalls, how to work through them on your own, how to involve your partner. I always encourage partners and family. If your mom's going to stay for 2 weeks after, invite her to that class as well. Let's talk through some of their concerns. I always feel that when people are questioned about their choices, they need to be reminded it comes from a place of love and concern. It's not always that they're trying to undermine your choices, but they're worried about you too.
Yeah.
So having them there and learning with us, I always tell dads, you're me when I'm not here. If a partner knows how to latch a baby, they can help latch a baby. If a partner knows how to position, they can help support mom in that positioning too.
I love the proactive education piece and how you're pulling partners into this as well. Because when I think about how can partners help on this journey, I'm like, oh, get the mom some water or a snack when she's on the couch. But like those are actually, if he is like educated, he can be like, oh, how about we prop this pillow up here because Jenni said,
Exactly.
This might be supportive. So let's stay on that topic for a second, whether it's during pregnancy and kind of navigating all of these choices versus when baby is here and there's bottles now, or there's breastfeeding, whichever method you're choosing. What are some tips for what partners can do to actually really support continuing on that?
So first is really being a part of that early education, being there, asking questions. When I do the home or office visits, I actually have dolls that we use for positioning and the partner's position as well. And I really talk through that whole supporting the head and shoulders, not pushing the head towards the baby or towards the breast, and how to make bottle feeding look and feel like breastfeeding if we need to supplement, so that we're doing a good job getting baby back if mom wants to body feed as well. The dads look at me a little strange when I hand them a doll.
What am I supposed to do with this?
But many of them haven't even held a baby. So it gives them a little bit, I wish they were heavier and more weighted, but it gives them an opportunity. And then we talk through different positioning and like where they can help mom. And then I will point out that mom may need like support under a wrist. This is a great place to tuck a blanket in. And like once she's settled and feeding, like offer her something to drink, offer her that snack. Biologically, every baby should be able to feed at breast. So I want to make sure that our families know with bottle feeding as well, that there are ways to mimic that feeding pattern so that we're supporting the way babies are supposed to biologically be able to feed.
Well, and I guess that was a question I was going to ask is there a quote unquote right way to bottle feed? Because, you hand your baby, especially if they're a little bit older, and a bottle to a family member, and they just like lay the baby down in their arm crook and just, hold the bottle basically vertical. Is that correct? Is that potentially making them gulp it faster than they need to? I've heard of pace bottle feeding. So like can you go a little bit more into how would that position actually look like for optimal bottle feeding?
So the new thought is that we're not calling it paced feeding anymore because we want baby to set the pace. We want it to be kind of that slow, natural flow that they would get, that ebb and flow like they would from the breast. Some people call it compassionate feeding. I like to just think of it as mindful feeding.
Oh, I like that.
Because we're developing a relationship with food. And this is a lifelong relationship with food. And I feel like, well, I don't have to tell you guys, food is important to being healthy and active. So I do like to do more of a sideline feeding position so that the bottle is kind of parallel to the floor. Because just like you said, the further we tip that bottle towards the teat, the faster that milk is going to flow. So we want to really slow that down and give baby a chance. Many times if we're offering a bottle, it's because there's an issue. So if a baby's already having a hard time sucking, swallowing, even just latching, we want to make it as similar as we can to feeding so that we can understand more of what's going on for baby. If we just waterboard them with the bottle and it's running out the sides of their mouths and they're choking, this isn't helping us figure out why they're struggling or help them have that good relationship with food.
Well, and you say struggling too. I mean, you do work with tongue tie. How do you help moms with understanding like what the main issue might be?
So in my practice, every baby gets an oral exam. I do a quick overhead check to see if there is tissue that's restrictive and changing how their oral cavity is functioning. I check them head to toe really quick too for tension, because sometimes there's tissue in the mouth, but it's not actually restrictive tissue. It's just that the muscles around are holding that tissue tight. So we want to look for body tension. We want to look to make sure that baby can actually relax and kind of enjoy feeding versus feeling kind of on guard and traumatized by feeding. So there's so many layers to how we figure out what's going on. Many times if a baby is struggling to feed on one breast and not the other, moms will say, oh, it's my breast, it's my nipple, it's, and they've sadly been told that by a lot of people. And I laugh all the time. It's a two-person job. Baby has to do their part as well.
Sure.
So if baby is uncomfortable laying on one side, they may not want to latch on that side. And it has nothing to do with mom. It has more to do with the position the baby's in to feed.
Yeah, I actually think that's great perspective because so many moms do take the blame.
Absolutely.
That is so true. Like I couldn't breastfeed because my nipple was whatever,
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I love that perspective because yes, it may be something that you can do to, change something about you, but it also could be about baby. There could be something going on there. A great perspective.
Yeah, and on that topic, what encouragement would you have for a woman who maybe had a not so great breastfeeding experience in the past, but wants to try again with maybe their next child?
I would definitely start with that pregnancy visit. It can be so helpful to talk through what might have been some of the pitfalls. I've worked with a few families that I meet them late in their journey, and they've been given bad information to start with. I've worked with a lot of families that didn't feel like they had the support the first time and were looking for support that second time, and we always start with education. Starting in pregnancy, again, gives you the opportunity to explore options. So many people are told it's all or nothing. You either put baby on your body and you feed them there, or you may as well give formula. And it's frustrating to me that that's still being said in our society. And it's not all or nothing. There's beautiful combinations of feeding that we can make it work for the family. Part of it is finding out why we struggled. Was it something biologically for mom? Was it milk supply? Was it, like her milk just didn't transition? How was her labor? How was her delivery? How was all of that? So we really dig into that history a little bit with their first. And then we talk about, what can we change to help maybe have a better pregnancy, maybe have a better delivery, and then better support right after.
Yeah. Yeah. That proactive appointment, with someone like you so that they can go in feeling confident, right? And at least if things don't go perfectly or the way that they planned, they have someone that they can lean on and ask questions to really quickly. And I know that you also you mentioned your breastfeeding basics course, but you also do have supportive Saturdays as well, right? Tell us a little bit about those.
So supportive Saturdays started out as a breastfeeding support group. And as I had families in my practice that maybe migrated away from feeding human milk and they moved into the formula realm, I felt that they were being excluded. So it quickly changed into an infant feeding support group, because it's important that all mothers have that support as they work through feeding their little ones. And the other thing that prompted it was knowing that most healthcare systems will charge you for a weight check.
Really?
Yes,
Oh.
They charge you a nurse visit. So I got angry. I'm a little bit of a vigilante sometimes. So I got angry and I was like, every Saturday I can sit at the office with the scale out. If no one comes, I work on social media. I do something else. But I felt it was important that families had that space where if they wanted to just weigh their baby, they can stop in and weigh their baby.
Is this something that even a pregnant woman could come to and just like come and ask questions and learn from other moms that are currently feeding?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And I have a bookshelf in the office. There's books on one side, there's pumps on the other side. So they can kind of look and touch and look ahead, at the pumps that are available. I picked Saturdays specifically for those families that were headed back to work. Most of our moms are back at 12 weeks. So I wanted them to have a space too where they could come and ask other moms, like, how are you managing this? How am I doing that? I'm there for an hour and a half. So we start at 8:30. The scale goes out. Really from 9 to 10 is kind of the support group space. But if a mom is struggling and she wants to do a weighed feed, she can weigh the baby. We write the numbers down on a piece of paper. She feeds the baby and we put the baby back on the scale and see what their intake was. So it gives her a good idea of how babies are doing. As babies grow, they don't spend as much time at breast. So moms get nervous.
I feel like you'd be such a great resource for that, because I remember feeling like that.
Yeah. It's so unnerving because you can't tell what they're taking in. And we tell you, trust yourself. Does your breast feel firm and then soft? Is baby wetting and pooping well? But there's something about numbers. We're very number driven. So if I had a mom recently that baby was only eating like 5 minutes and she's like, he can't be getting enough. He just can't be getting enough. So we did the weighed feed and he took 4.5 ounces in that 5 minutes.
Oh my,
he's good.
Efficient eater.
Fantastic. Now I've got other moms that, we eat for, 20 minutes and they maybe take an ounce. Okay, now we should talk about what might be going on and maybe set up an appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're such a great resource for our area. I mean, just thinking back to our experiences, both of my kids, my son specifically, my oldest, I cried every feeding for 3 weeks. It was rough. And then finally with my daughter, 2.5 years later, I did have a lactation consultant that came alongside me and really helped. So if I would have been able to meet with someone like you during pregnancy, I think this would have been
100%.
just so much better. I think people go into pregnancy and birth with like, every woman should be able to breastfeed. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. But then there's challenges, right? And we kind of touched on those. But in our next episode, we're really going to dive into a lot of those challenges that people experience and some tips and tricks for helping you overcome them. And so that's our next episode coming up. After that, we are going to have a full episode dedicated to pumping. There is so much to talk about there. And Jenni is this is one of her absolutely deep knowledge topics. So you're definitely going to want to listen in for that and share that with friends that are in that phase of life. And then in our fourth one, it's going to be a very unique episode. We're going to be talking about induced lactation, relactation, post-surgery breastfeeding. So some of these special circumstances, Jenni's going to share her knowledge with us and those ones as well. So stay tuned for more episodes coming up. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.